Jai Anilo Premadano Paramakacho Jai Radha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Text 18. Pureshu Punyokavanadri Kunjeshu Apankatoyeshu Sarir Sarhasu Anantalingari Samalam Kriteshu Chachara Tirthayantesu Ananya Pureshu Punyo Pavanadri Kunjeshu Apankato Yeshu Sadit Sahar Sarasu Anantalingahi Samalam Kriteshu Chachara Tirthayam Eshananya Pureshu Punyo Pavanadli Kunjeshu Pankato Yeshu Sarit Sarasu Anantalingahi Samalam Kriteshu Chachara Tirthayam Paneshananya
Pureshu Punyo Pavanadri Kunjeshu Pankato Yeshu Sarit Sarasu Anantalingaya Samalam Kriteshu Chara Tirthaya
Pureshu punyo pavanadri kunjeshu Pankato yeshu sarit sarahashu Anantalingai samalam kriteshu Bharatitaya taneshu ananyaha
Pureshu Punya Pavanadri Kunjeshu
Pureshu punyo pavanadri kunjeshu Pankato yeshu sarit sarahashu Anantalingai samalam kriteshu Chachara tirthaya taneshu ananyaha.
Ladies,
Pureshu punyo pavanadri kunjeshu Pankato yeshu sarit sarahashu Anantalingai samalam kriteshu Chachara tirthaya taneshu ananyaha.
Pureshu, holy places like Ayodhya, Arca, and Mathura, Punya, piety, Upavana, the air, Antri, hill, Kunjeshu, in the orchards, Apanka, without sin, Toyeshu, in the water, Sadit, river, Sarasu, lakes, Anantalingahi, the forms of the unlimited, Samalam Kriteshu, being so decorated, Chachara, executed, Tirtha, places of pilgrimage, Ayantanesu, holy lands, Ananya, alone or seeing Krishna alone. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He began to travel alone, thinking only of Krishna, through various holy places, like Ayodhya, Arca, Mathura. He traveled where the air, hill, orchard, river, and lake are all pure and sinless, and where the forms of the unlimited decorate the temples, thus perform the pilgrim's progress. Purport. These Arca forms of the Lord may be considered idols by the atheists, but that does not matter for persons like Vigraha or his many other servants. The forms of the Lord are mentioned here as Ananta Linga. Such forms of the Lord have unlimited potency, the same as that of the Lord himself. There is no difference between the potencies of the Arca and those of the personal forms of the Lord. The example of the post box and post office may be applied here. The little post boxes distributed all over the city have the same potency as the postal system in general. The duty of the post office is to carry letters from one place to another. If one puts letters in post boxes authorized by the General Post Office, the function of carrying letters is performed without a doubt. Similarly, the Arca Murti can also deliver the same unlimited potency of the Lord as when he is personally present. Vigraha therefore could see nothing but Krishna in the different Arca forms, and ultimately he was able to realize Krishna alone and nothing else. We are hearing a text today about the great devotee by the name of Vigraha. Perhaps you know the history of Vigraha. In his previous birth, he was Yama, the Lord of Death, a very powerful demigod, one of the controllers, in fact, of the universe, and certainly the controllers of men's and women's fate. A sage at that time had committed a small mistake, transgression when only a child, having pierced a little insect with a straw. And for that mistake, it was determined that he should be put onto he had to face a very horrible death, being thrown into a bed of vines or something, right? Somehow impaled on spears. So he could not trace out in his life anything which should have caused him to have to face such a horrible fate as this. And then it was explained that when you were only a child, you pierced an insect with a straw. This should make us very cautious now about, killing cockroaches and other bugs, which people do on a mass scale. Here, look what happened to this sage, but who was a sage too. He wasn't an electronics person or somebody working in an office somewhere in Dallas, right? This man was a sage, very distinctive personality. And look at the fate he had to get. Anyway, he didn't like what happened, so he said that whoever has cursed me like this is an ignorant fool, because a child should not be blamed. According to Mana Samhita, children are not to be blamed. So he cursed that person, that this person should take birth as a foolish person, a Shudra, someone who doesn't know what is what. And so Yamaraj took his birth as Vidura. Vidura actually was born in a very exalted family. He had two brothers, Bhishma and Dhritarashtra. No, Pandu and Dhritarashtra. So he had two very exalted brothers, but his mother was a Sudrani. Mother was lowborn. So Vidura was a great devotee of Lord Krishna. And when he saw how unfair Dhritarashtra and his sons, as headed by Duryodhana, were in terms of treating the Pandavas, he criticized Duryodhana, and he criticized his brother Dhritarashtra that you are blind, not only physically, but you are spiritually blind, that you are allowing your sons to behave in such a way, and you yourself behave in such a way. So when he spoke these harsh words, or not harsh words, but he spoke these truthful words, Duryodhana became very, very enraged. And he called Vidura, the son of a kept woman, a Shudrani, and so many things he said about Vidura, very harsh words. So Vidura decided at once to quit the palace and to leave. And so we find him now doing a pilgrimage. This is the background of this text. Which is, something to reflect upon, that when you, and it will happen to every one of us, that we will be treated harshly. Right? How can we say who will treat us harshly? It may be your wife, or it may be your husband, or it may be your children, it may be your parents, it may be, your guru, who knows who will treat you harshly. Then you always have recourse to go on a pilgrimage. You can immediately say, I'm not going on a pilgrimage. Vidura went on a pilgrimage, and I'm going to go on a pilgrimage. And then you can go on a pilgrimage to 5430 Burley Avenue. Come to the temple room and see the Arca Vigraha, Ananta Linga, the unlimited forms of the Lord. And immediately, such a place is described here as a very, very nice place. He traveled with the air, the hill, the orchards, and river. This should tell you should make a very nice park here with flowers. Make this place very beautiful. But the main point about the pilgrimage place was it was sinless. The place was sinless. Abhanga, without sin. And Srila Prabhupada makes the point in this regard that it is the duty of those who are administrators to see that no sin is committed in the Dham. It's very important. Those of us who are old, those of us who are living here, have to be exemplary in our behavior. It is not going any place. And people should be able to sense when they come here that this is a very different atmosphere. So what will make the atmosphere different is sinlessness. There are 4 gross sins. Eating of meat, fish, and eggs is one. Gambling, taking of intoxication, and gambling, and illicit sex. These are 4 gross sinful activities, or sometimes they're referred to as the pillars of sinful life. Because when these 4 are there, then they gradually they seep out into all types of other activities. And they deteriorate the good qualities, the strength, the spiritual strength within the individual. Spiritual strength is called tapa. Tapa means austerity. Spiritual strength is based upon the idea of prohibition, restriction. Restriction is based upon the idea of doing something wrong, a wrongful act. And a wrongful act usually means that you have contravened the injunctions of Scripture. Now the question may be raised, who defines or who determines what is stated in Scripture? Of course, the ordinary view is that Scriptures are created by ordinary persons. But we take a different view. Dharman tu shakshat bhagavat pranitana. Religion is described by Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord. That means we believe the Scriptures reveal truth. That's not perhaps a modern viewpoint, right? Modern viewpoint would be the Scriptures not revelation, but it's not free of error, it's not inerrant, but we take a different stand to say it is. And it is revealed, it may have been written or spoken by mortals, by persons who are within this world, but they don't do so under inspiration, which is basically what, that's what other religions also say about their Scripture. Even if God Himself, if you want to argue, didn't speak it or write it directly, but He inspired others to do so. Of course, anyway, this, we could go on and on to show you how modern day tendencies are to question every aspect of religion. Every aspect. Then they say, well, why are you saying He may have not spoken? You're already speaking about God as a person or as a He. Again, and it goes on and on and on and on. Practically every word, you have to qualify every word you say here. So that you want to try to speak in certain types of audiences. But fortunately, we don't have to do that, so I won't bother. So prohibitions, restrictions means by restricting oneself, one gains spiritual strength. Well, that's not so hard to understand. Just like if you have a bank balance and you restrict spending, the balance increases. Right? You don't expend your energy. Anybody knows that you do something which exhausts your energy, you feel tired afterwards. So the whole idea of tapasya, or voluntary restraint, is to increase strength. What kind of strength? Spiritual strength. Spiritual strength. Just like there's a tendency to want to chatter with the tongue, talk about all kinds of nonsense. Now, if you can learn how to speak about Krishna, or to speak in ways which benefit Krishna somehow or other, this is an austerity or a restraint of the tongue. Another restraint of the tongue would be to only eat food which has been offered to Krishna, prasad, instead of just gobbling down, endless types of foods without any thought. I'm always appalled, since when I travel on a plane and I just see people the waitresses come and they put all the dinners down, just sit down and start eating. And it's exactly what animals do. It's a biological act. As far as they're concerned, it's a necessity. You've got to eat. But actually, eating is meant to be a sacred activity. As is everything you can do. Everything you do is meant to be a sacred activity. The problem is that the sacred has been drained out of this world. So that people have lost understanding about things are sacred. And so the whole world is basically come to, view life as simply a biological enterprise. That's it. There's nothing but subsistence, life. You subsist, you live, you exist, you maintain, you reproduce, you die. That's a very gloomy view of life. And in fact, it gives rise to a very pessimistic viewpoint. Of course, people try to turn that around and say, well, no, it's not pessimistic. You're pessimistic because That's you say that there is nothing worth living for in this world, whereas we know that this world is all there is, and so it's everything to look forward to. And we make more out of it, and that's why we have increased the world. And all the progress is due to people who practically saw that this world is everything, all in all. Whereas those who take the view that there's nothing to live for in this world, everything is for the life hereafter, they don't care about progress. That's why India hasn't been able to progress materially, because you've got so many people thinking about religion and about what's going to happen after they die, and not enough people are thinking about what's happening while they're alive. The problem with that argument is that, apart from the fact that it doesn't in any way explain life, they're so hot about their ideas about what makes life tick, and they can do so many things, but they can't produce life in the chemistry levels of it. They have not been able to isolate consciousness and explain what is its source. The most important thing which separates the human being from any other, grosser form is its higher consciousness. They can't explain that exactly. They can't explain how there's consciousness in other forms of life. Explain means they cannot isolate what is its cause. Of course you can't, because what is its cause is not material, it's spiritual. So first of all, so-called science, breaks down on that level. It can't explain this answer. Can't give this answer. Furthermore, if this life becomes everything, if there becomes a mad competition to suck out, whatever one can from this planet, because really to extend this argument, it breeds more and more. It doesn't take account, for example, of future generations. Now you can say, yes, it does. We will have an ecological program which will benefit this planet, and concern itself with future generations. But the tendency is that if all you think about is that this life is everything, then generally you don't think so much for future generations. Whereas when you have a religious belief which teaches you that you're ultimately responsible for everything, now that you do, now you will have to take consequences in the future. It does make you more responsible. It makes you more responsible. Furthermore, if you believe in a religious system which is, friendly to the planet, like we do, then you won't abuse this planet ecologically. One of the beautiful things about the Vedic culture, because religion is always embedded in the culture. There's no such thing as religion separate from the culture. So one of the beautiful things about this religious tradition, the Sanatana Dharma or Vaishnava religion, is it's embedded in the Vedic culture. The Vedic culture was and is really the most advanced culture. It's a culture which teaches people how to live a saintly life. It creates saints. It makes people part of an entire, world in which the human being acts as a saintly person, instead of the human being acting, as a lord or a usurper of the resources of this planet. The human being learns how to act in a very integrated way within the world, because it teaches humility. It teaches humility. It teaches respect for all life, because we don't just say that life is in human beings, but other types of life don't. We say that there's a soul in every living being. What could be a better way of showing respect to others than to see every living being as a spirit soul? Vigraha Sampane Brahmanastani Sunichaiva Sabhakijan Pandita Samadarshana. This means training people to be pandit, learned person, sage, intelligent person. So, a religious tradition like Krishna Consciousness has a way of teaching a person how to gain control over themselves and not lose control. Now the world is set with people who have lost control, whose senses and mind are out of control. Last night on the news they were saying the number one favorite sport in the United States is race car. They were watching race stock car driving. And then they showed the people enjoying themselves. Right? And the picture was of the stock car races zooming around the track with this huge noise and tremendous amount of this, of carbon monoxide fumes pouring out all over the place, right? Practically looked like clouds over the racetrack, with people munching on hot dogs. And they interviewed people, what do you like about this? And they said, one person said the noise. Nobody said fumes, but that's what they might as well have said. I like to breathe the carbon monoxide. I'm not breathing. And how much and they asked another thing, 4 people, how much do you spend? He said, we'll spend $400 or $500. They pay to breathe carbon monoxide, get your ears blasted out by the sound, and lose $500. That's America's number one sport. Baseball is too tame. You just see it all getting bounced around. You can see how things become more. This is Kali Yuga, right? This is the dance of the age of color. National pastime used to be baseball, right? No fumes, no sound except, if the crowd roared because of a home run. But no big sound, no fumes. Right? Much more, I don't want to call it a mode of goodness, but less of the mode of ignorance, for sure, and passion. But as the Kali Yuga progresses, and my point is, these things are all interconnected. These are interconnected facts. You cannot separate these facts. You can discover in anything you touch, just like it is said, if you want to know if the rice is cooked in a pot, how do you tell if the rice is cooked in a pot? You can take 1 grain of rice and press it. And if it's soft and nice and fluffy, the whole pot is cooked, right? And if 1 grain is not soft, nothing is going to be soft. So you can take any aspect of society and press it, and you'll get so much understanding about how everything else is. So in this verse we hear, about what is a very pleasant atmosphere. Now you can see how it's described. These are holy places, right? Ayodhya, Dwarka, and Mathura. Interesting, all 3 places, cities, mentioned here. Right? So we're not talking about a countryside. We're talking about 3 cities. And how do they describe these 3 cities? It doesn't. It talks about his traveling through the countryside. But I wanted to make the point that in these 3 cities, other descriptions which are given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, beautiful parks, lots of birds, trees, flowers, lakes, fountains,
Bees.
what is that?
Bees.
Bees. I don't know how nice that is.
Bees.
Huh?
Bees. Deer.
Deer. Is that what you said? I don't know about deer, but that's more in the hermitage. That's in the ashram, the sage's ashram in the park. Well, all right, maybe there is a deer park. There was a deer park because Buddha was meditating at deer park, but I don't know if that was inside the city. Anyway, the point is that places were very nice. No, he doesn't describe, what we see today, asphalt jungle. That's an interesting metaphor, isn't it? An asphalt. The cities are called asphalt jungles. Now, why do we put those 2 words together? There's no asphalt in a jungle. But a jungle implies what? danger, right? Wild animals, no protection. The cities have become like that, isn't it? You feel like that. How many of you would walk around downtown or different places in the city in the middle of the night? Wouldn't you feel like it's as dangerous as walking in the country, in a jungle? In fact, you might feel it's safer in the jungle. You might be willing to take your chances with the tigers and lions more than with some of the people that live in these cities. Because you know how to deal with a tiger or lion. Just give them some food and they'll be tamed. But some people today, you can do anything you want, they'll still kill you. A tiger only kills when it's hungry. For people now, they don't need any reason to kill. They don't need any reason to kill. So, as I said, anything you press, you can get the message. Then the countryside is also described as very beautiful. And the point is that it's in these types of atmospheres, pleasant atmospheres, the mind becomes peaceful. One of the advantages of this temple room's design, which I've always appreciated, is that it's completely enclosed. If you think about it, probably the best thing that makes this temple room special, there's many that we could name, but one of the things would be the fact that it seals you off from the material world. You can completely control the environment in here. And we have tried to do so. Hey, Nishinga. Just want to be corrected. So, the atmosphere here, just like we have water now in terms of for the Russia, but otherwise bubbling fountains are very pleasant. Water is very pleasant. So the Dura felt immediately relieved. And this is a nice point. If you are feeling too much stress or tension, then you need to go into such peaceful atmospheres. And that's why they have this, like they have botanical gardens here, a very nice place. You can walk around. It depends on what your needs are. Personally, it would do anything for me. But it might do something for you. Personally, I wouldn't find it. I would just think I was wasting my time walking through the botanical gardens. But some people would like that. And it's not bad. It's not bad. Sometimes you need to get into a spirit. But just like when we want to get relief, we prefer to go to, we'll go on pilgrimage, right? Now that we've heard from Vrindavan, Rajman, we've heard from. Then you get the outside air and places. But the special feature of such places is that they're tirthas, holy places. I prefer, therefore, if I really want to get, but I do get some relief. Even like if I want to have relief, I'll just walk down Curly Avenue. Why do I like to walk on Curly Avenue? Because I see so many devotees. And when I see the devotees, that is my relief. This is what makes a place a holy place of pilgrimage. The association of saintly persons. Now you'll see there's so many Hindu temples, right? In the United States, there's so many Hindu temples. And generally, what do people do when they come to a temple? They come for the darshan of the deity, right? But actually it is said that when you go to a place of pilgrimage, the most important thing that you want to get is sadhu sangha, association with sadhu, saintly persons. That is more important. Why? Because a sadhu is one who can cut the knot of material attachment. You can go in front of the deity, and most people, what do when they go in front of the deity? They pray for more. They pray for the fulfillment of their attachments, the fulfillment of their desires. Oh God, I need a car. Oh God, I need my son to pass his exam and go to Harvard. Oh God, I need, this operation that my husband is going to undergo should be successful. So many people come, and what is their whole purpose in coming to the temple? To make a prayer. Not just to a Hindu temple, it's the same with church, same with any religious building, and with relationship with God. Most people remain like, dependent children. God is like the father, or God is the supplier. Prabhupada says the order supplier, like going to a supermarket and getting your shopping cart and wheeling around the different aisles, filling up your shopping cart. So you go with a wish list, and you go over to God and say, here's what I need this week. This is my, supply list. Could you please supply it? 15 cans of this, and 10 packs of frozen such and such, like going shopping. But that's not how we're supposed to go in front of the deity. The problem is you can't trust yourself because you have all the desires. But a saintly person is the representative of God, you see. And he's going to take your list and say, you don't need this, you don't need this, you don't need this, you don't need any of these things. And he'll take the piece of paper and throw it away. And say, actually, we need you to do some service here. Clean the floor, sweep the floor, go and cut up vegetables, do some service. In other words, a saintly person will cut through all of the material attachments and show you how you can do service to Krishna instead of how, God is supposed to be your servant. Therefore, it is said that the devotee of the Lord is more merciful than the Lord. Really, it doesn't mean that in a sense, but it does. It means it in this way, that when a devotee is more merciful, it means that he is, or she is, the extension of God's mercy to you. God is acting mercifully through his devotee. That's the meaning of the devotee being more merciful than God. Now, in this particular verse today, Prabhupada focuses his comment, purport, on the meaning of the deity, the Vigraha, right? Anantalingani, these deity forms, and gives the example of a postal box and a post office, saying that when you post your letter in a post box, it goes somewhere because the post box is connected administratively to a post office. It's authorized, and your letter gets to its destination. So when you come in here and make your prayer, it gets delivered. That's the deity is the authorized extension of the Lord himself. God appears before us in the form of the deity to accept our loving offerings. Not just any box will do when you want to post a letter. You can't make a box and put it up in your house and put a letter in the box and think it's going to go anywhere. It won't go anywhere. But if it's a U.S. postal box, it will go somewhere. Similarly, you can't just say, I think I'm going to make a deity with 7 heads, 6 arms, and 5 stomachs, and worship it. I'm going to manufacture my own idea. Right? That didn't work. Just like you read, I was watching the 10 Commandments, a famous movie, they played it again. Every year they play it on Easter. And, when Moses was going up, Charlton Heston went up onto the mountainside. And while he was going up, all the people lost their patience and they decided to make a golden calf and worship the golden calf. Moses came down from the mountain and said, you idolatrous rascals. And he said, I have come with the laws of God, and you are worshiping the golden calf. He broke the calf, threw the tablets at them. It's quite a dramatic scene. So this kind of manufacturing of the deity is called idolatry. To worship something which is not God. That's the idea. So some people will say, Prabhupada says, atheists will say that we are worshiping idols. Well, if we thought that if these are something different than God, then we are. But we don't say they are. We don't say they are. We take a different view. We say that God can be present. He's immanent. He's everywhere. And if he wishes to manifest his presence more clearly to us, he can do so. If God is extended everywhere through his energies, he can take these energies and transform them into worshipable forms. If he does so, or if we do so under his guidance, then it's not the same. It's not simply an idol. Of course, there are some astonishing law-defying instances where the deity has done things, talked, walked. Now, you can, of course, people say, you don't believe those stories, do you? Yes, we believe them. We do believe it. We don't see that it's impossible. Nothing is impossible for the Supreme Lord to do. That's our view. But even in thinking otherwise, that, supposing someone said, well, we don't think this way. But we see practically that our lives have improved immeasurably by the grace of the deity. Now, someone would say, well, that's just a psychological thing. You have decided that that deity is God, and so you behave in a certain way, which is good. No doubt it's good, the way you behave. But you could have done that for anything. You could have put up a bottle of Pepsi-Cola on the altar and treated that bottle of Pepsi-Cola as your God, and acted very humbly, bowed down, saying, every morning, Pepsi-Cola, and it would have the same effect. Well, is there anyone in the world who does that? You say it will have the same effect, but let's see someone do that. How long are you going to go and bow down in front of a bottle of Pepsi-Cola? How are you going to keep people on the altar for 2 hours? Cleansing the bottle, polishing it, dressing it up, putting a garland around it. It's not going to work. It won't work. Huh? Putting tilak on a bottle of Pepsi-Cola. So, and Prabhupada makes the point, if you think that the names of Krishna are ordinary, and you can chant water, 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 will it quench your thirst? No, it will make you more thirsty, because the water and the name water are not the same. But Krishna and Krishna's name are one and the same, and when you chant Krishna's name, you get satisfaction. I mean, people have been chanting the names of God in all over the world, in different religions, for thousands of years of getting satisfied. And we have never seen anyone do that. Only a moron would sit and chant some mundane word again. And people who do that get locked up because they become crazy. Whereas the devotees don't become crazy by chanting God's name. There is a difference. Like it or not, when you put it together or not, there is a difference. There is a very comprehensive, consistent philosophy that goes through all of this, and goes along with all of this. It does work. It does produce saint people, not mad people. So, deity worship is essential. Prabhupada said, especially for households, married people, deity worship is essential. Why? Because the deity gives us the ability to see a transcendental form. We are attached to these material bodies of ours, right? And we need to learn that this body is not the self. Within us, the body is the soul. So in order to give us a sense of a transcendental body, we see the deity's body. We take care of his body in a spiritual way. Right? Whereas we try to minimize the needs of this body, although it's not so easy to do that, but we try, if we can, at least to regulate the needs of this body. And even there, the deity helps us to regulate our needs. Without deity worship, how many people would get up at 4 o'clock or 4:15 in the morning to come to Mangal Arati? And not many people would do so. You'd sleep in. But and when you come in front of the deities, you feel like I have to be clean. So you take a shower. You put on tilak on the bottom of your forehead, that I'm Krishna's, servant. That's what this tilak means. This tilak tells Krishna that I'm your servant. Here, count me as one of your followers. That's why we put tilak on. We put on clean clothes. Why do we wear dhotis or saris? Because you can clean them very easily. That's why. There's a whole culture on everything is connected. It's not as easy when you start wearing other types of clothing. You know, and how many people wear a clean pair of slacks every day? Do people do that? You wear a clean pair of slacks every day, Tom? Shame on you. And then dry clean. What is dry cleaning? Oh, it's cleansing by chemical process, right? Is that what dry cleaning is? Use chemicals to clean? And how can a chemical clean? Or are they steam clean? Used to be steam clean. Anyway, that's the whole point is how many people wear a clean dress or clean pair, clean suit every day? People just don't do that. Well, there's no reason to do it. What's the point anyway? Because the place you're going to is not clean. And the work you're doing is not particularly clean. There's no point. But here's a culture where every day you put on a fresh dhoti or a fresh sari. And it's not a big deal. It really isn't a big deal. When we iron these just so it looks nice, but actually it's not even required. It's not really required. You dip it in some water and hang it up, and the sun dries it and finished it, and you put it on. It's clean. And cleanliness is next to godliness. Clean clothes, clean mind, clean food, clean association, clean thoughts. They're all connected. They're all connected. They get purified. So Vidura is purifying himself. What's he purifying himself from? Duryodhana. He's purifying himself from the contaminating association of someone who is sinful. And we need to do the same, because daily we are in association of contaminated situations, whatever it may be, contaminated circumstances, whether it's people or places or activities. We need to regularly purify ourselves. That's why we perform Krishna conscious activities, to get purified. Purify, cleanse the consciousness. Therefore, every day we have to chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. It purifies the consciousness. We have to eat purifying food, prasad. We have to see the deity, purify our eyes. We have to purify our ears. We have to bow our head down, purify our ego. Instead of thinking, I'm not going to bow down to anyone. No, we will bow down. We bow down not only to the deity, not only to the guru, we bow down to the Vaishnavas. We bow down to Tulsi Devi. Otherwise it says that a head that does not bow down is simply a heavy burden on the shoulders. You know how much your head weighs? If you could put it on a scale, it's pretty heavy. And you have to carry that burden around all the time on your shoulders. Well, if you bow your head down and let it rest for a while on the floor, it's a relief. Relief. Well, this is the Krishna consciousness. It's so nice. It gives relief in so many ways. It purifies us in so many ways. It ultimately qualifies us, prepares us for going back to God. Anybody have any comments or questions? Yes, Roger.
There's a comment that Maharaj Yudhishthira glorifies Maharaj Vidura is in fact a personified holy place. Wherever he goes, he glorifies the holy place itself.
Yes.
So there is a very significant.
The Ganges River. The Ganges River was being brought to earth. Ganges didn't want to come. She said, if I come on this planet, so many people are going to take baths in my water, and I'm going to get filled up with all their sins. Then what was told to the Ganges? That in those holy places there will be so many saintly people, and by their bathing in your water, you will get purified. So saintly persons are so purified, they purify the Ganga. If the Ganga is pure, and everybody knows Ganga is pure, but she herself becomes purified, when the sadhus bathe in her water. So truly, a devotee of the Lord is a place of pilgrimage. Any other comments or questions?
How to pray for God about our materialistic needs?
How to pray to God?
Yeah.
Or
Materialistic attachments or needs.
how should we do it? We shouldn't. We should not. We should not pray, give me, give me, give me. When you're a small child, you can say to your parents, give me, give me, give me. But when you grow up, you should say, let me give to you. Let me give to you. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I'm not going to pray to anything, for anything except to serve you. If you can, actually, when you think about it, you'll know. When are you happiest? When you're serving someone you love. So you should pray to God, please let me love you. Please help me to love you. Then I'll be fully satisfied. Just make me your servant. Krishna knows your needs. He knows your needs. So you should think that Krishna will give me whatever I need. And what he doesn't give me means I didn't need it. Is God maintaining the birds and beasts? Is he giving the animals what they need? So why he can't give you, this devotee, what you need? If he's looking after the animals who are practically doing nothing for them, why should he not look after you, who are devoting your life?
Someone gets sick, how he serves others. He has to pray God and he has to get better.
If someone gets sick, yeah, they can say, dear Krishna, please make me better so I can serve you. But what if, you're saying, please, dear Krishna, please make me better so I can make some more money and go to the stock markets. But see, the question is what you're going to do when you get better. That's the question. Okay, a servant of Krishna has a right to pray to Krishna, get me better so I can serve you. Then it's not asking for anything selfish. But if you're saying, I have an important date this Saturday night with my favorite girlfriend, and right now I've got a terrible flu, and we have tickets to the wherever, what kind of prayer is that? Get me better. For what? The question is, what do you want to get better for? Yeah, you can pray to Krishna like that, but the best prayer is when we chant Hare Krishna. The meaning is, "Oh Krishna, oh Radha, please let me serve you." That's what Hare Krishna means. Hare Krishna Mahamantra means, "Oh Krishna, oh Radharani, please let me serve you." So we don't ask anything else. That's all we ask for. That includes everything. If you let me serve you, you're the master, you'll know what I need. Just like in the old days, when there were masters and servants, right? The servants were kept by the master. The master would give the servants whatever clothing they required. They'd give them whatever food they required. They gave them a place to stay. They gave them money to maintain their family back in their village. A good person would do all of that for the servant. The servant didn't even have to ask. The master would ask, "What do you need?" But we're not good servants, so therefore we're neglected. We're not proper servants, so therefore Krishna doesn't feel that responsibility. But you should be satisfied with whatever you give. It's said, for example, in terms of serving Guru, a brahmachari should be willing to accept whatever the Guru gives. If the Guru fails to call the brahmachari, this is like in a traditional ashram. If the Guru fails to call the brahmachari to eat, the brahmachari will fast that day. Because he thinks, I'm simply maintained by my spiritual master. I'm just showing you how the training was, to be dependent. And here, the training is to be independent. Oh, I can't be dependent because what if that person who I'm dependent on doesn't maintain me? So I have to maintain myself. I have to look after myself. That's the thought now. But we're doing a terrible job of looking after ourselves. Krishna can do a much better job if we just become fully dependent on him. We have to trust. Just like Draupadi, right? She was being stripped naked in the assembly, right? So what did she do? She put up her hands and said, "Hey Krishna, hey Govinda." And Krishna gave her so much sari to cover her body. As much as they tried to take away, Krishna gave. She didn't do anything. She just said, "Oh, hey Govinda." That's the whole point, is to learn to be dependent upon Krishna for everything. Another question or comment? Next one.
In New York, it often notes that some fall down, not from devotional service, and when the opportunity arises, they'll pick up again.
Well, I think what we should focus on is what he said. When someone falls down from devotional service, when they come back, they begin from where they left off. Opportunity is always opportunities. There's endless opportunities. Opportunities everywhere. We have to take advantage of them. All right, time has run out. We will stop now. Thank you very much for listening carefully. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.